So they call this meeting with all the Obama top people, and no revised PDB has been issued yet. No revised intelligence community assessment has happened yet. The last thing that happened in the intel community was, we're going to tell them that there really was no significant Russian interference, at least insofar as election apparatus goes. And FBI said, we're out. We're going to issue our own. And then Clapper said, all right, well, let's just pause everything. Then everybody gets together. Right after that, before any revised intel happened, before anything happened, they began leaking to the media. WAPO, New York Times, CNN, saying something diametrically opposed, saying, Russia interfered. And that to you describe that as the smoking gun that shows there had been a decision to shift the entire messaging around this in a way they thought would undermine Trump.
When Megyn Kelly speaks up, powerful names don't just take a hit, they fall hard. Barack Obama, once seen as the flawless face of modern politics, gets his image stripped down by her sharp wit and unfiltered honesty. There's nothing gentle about it. She tears through media hype, broken promises, and fake progress with full force. Kelly doesn't just criticize, she completely breaks down the image, turning public praise into smoke. This isn't casual talk, it's a precise takedown.
So how much is enough money, according to the Obamas? 70 million? Because public reports estimate that is their net worth, parlayed on the back of Barack Obama's 14 years of holding political office. He did not spend 50 years in government service. He did a stint in the Illinois State Senate. He did a couple years in the U.S. Senate before he ran for office and won. All right, then he did 2 terms as president.
Barack Obama stepped into politics like a savior on a stage, surrounded by buzz, flashing cameras, and polished hope posters. Touted as the symbol of real change, he quickly mastered the art of keeping things the same, just with better lighting and smooth speeches. As Megyn Kelly cuts through the glossy image, it becomes clear he wasn't just exposed, he was selling that image as if it were the height of political brilliance.
But you can't say anything that is in any way critical of a minority racial group, especially blacks in America.
That was what Barack Obama learned very quickly when he ran for office. Remember that in his memoir, he said he just sort of when he went to a campus, he wanted to only hang out with black people. He had to break up with his white girlfriend. And then he really threw his own grandmother, who had actually scrimped and saved to put him in prep school, when he said she was a typical white person who was unduly afraid of black males approaching her. So he didn't want to be known as a multiracial or non-racial person. He really wanted to emphasize only half of his own ancestry. And it was very sad, because when you actually looked at his grandmother and all of that, she was the one person in his life who made sure that he had access to a competitive education, and she was a...
Let's talk about the Nobel Peace Prize winner who received the award as casually as a free mint at a hotel. Obama hadn't even settled into the Oval Office when Oslo handed him the medal. But for what exactly? Just for showing up. For being well-spoken and tall. Meanwhile, drone strikes were already lined up like Black Friday orders, only these came with a confident grin and a polished statement that made bombing wedding parties sound like a step toward peace.
I'm so glad I didn't have a boy.
Yeah.
Because he would have been a Barack Obama.
Baby Barack, it would have been amazing.
Ooh, no, I would have felt for him.
She just borrowed our boys.
Yes, I got plenty.
Wow.
Did you catch that? She's glad she didn't have a boy, because he would have been a Barack Obama.
Megyn Kelly doesn't just criticize, she cuts right to the core. And Obama's untouchable status doesn't shield him. He walked into office with the kind of star power that made it seem like he'd drop a song with Beyoncé before tackling real issues, and honestly, that's not far from what happened. Red carpets, slow jam skits with Jimmy Fallon, appearances on comedy shows where every pause he made was treated like wisdom. All the while, Flint still had toxic water, and veterans were stuck waiting for care longer than people waiting for the latest iPhone.
Here she is talking about it. If it were me, I would say something nice about him. I would say, like, he's just so charming. It was meant to be. I knew he could heal the earth in the way he did. There was only one person who could do it, and it was my husband, Barack Obama, whatever. Then she gets on to talking a little bit about him personally, and this is how that sounded.
When a girlfriend comes to visit, it's usually like, you got to stay for 2 days because it's going to take us
so much
2
time
days to check up. Now, Barack's come in, he's come out, and he's like, y'all still talking? He'll sit down for 5 minutes, be like, how are the boys?
Let's not forget his unique talent for sounding profound while saying almost nothing. His speeches often felt like gospel until you looked closer and saw he promised everything to everyone without actually saying much at all. It was like he could feed a crowd of thousands with just a few buzzwords and a polished slogan. But behind the elegant delivery was a masterclass in avoiding responsibility, wrapped in smooth talk and theatrical charm.
I love how the soundbite begins. Okay, it's not the fear for myself. I drive around in a 4-car motorcade with a police escort. I'm Michelle Obama. Unbelievable, right? Who talks about themselves that way? Even if you are Michelle Obama, Barack Obama doesn't talk about himself that way. It's just like the hubris. And then this is the part that jumped out to me more than any other. I do still worry about my daughters in the world, even though they are somewhat recognizable.
Then came the so-called economic recovery. The stock market soared, Wall Street celebrated, and tech elites toasted their success. But everyday Americans were left scraping by piecing together part-time jobs without benefits, trying to pay rent with nothing but hope and a few campaign slogans. Megyn Kelly doesn't need drama to make that sting. She simply tells it straight. Obama bailed out the banks, not the people. The same folks who helped crash the economy walked away richer, while the rest got speeches about resilience, a few selfies, and the gift of healthcare. Ah yes, Obamacare, the shiny promise marketed like the next big tech launch. Supposed to be affordable and game-changing, it ended up feeling more like a scratched-up old phone. Premiums spiked, doctors vanished, and the website crashed harder than public trust. Still, all you got was a lecture on how it was better than nothing while trying to make sense of a 20-page deductible form. Then there was foreign policy, a masterclass in overpromising and underdelivering. Syria was a mess tied to a red line drawn in vanishing ink. Libya turned into a failed experiment in DIY democracy, and Iraq. Just another round in the never-ending game of geopolitical whack-a-mole. Through it all, Obama moved across the world stage like a peaceful visionary while carrying a kill list in his pocket.
The instant affectation, like, oh, my man. And like she doubles down in the following clip. It's just over the top. And here it is, 37.
There hasn't been one moment in our marriage where I thought about quitting my man. And we've had some really hard times. So we have had a lot of fun times, a lot of adventures. And I have become a better person because of the man I'm married to.
Okay, don't make me cry now. Right at the beginning of the show.
Oh, that's sweet.
Don't let me start.
But hey, at least the selfies looked great. Obama seemed more focused on maintaining his cool image than fixing the slow, broken systems within the government. He gave quirky interviews to YouTubers in bathtubs, while veterans struggled just to get basic medical care. If charm were money, the country would have been debt-free. But charisma doesn't erase student loans or bring down insulin prices. Megyn Kelly tears through this carefully crafted legacy with ease because behind the sharp suits and powerful speeches was a presidency with more flair than follow-through. He smiled his way through scandals like the IRS controversy and unchecked surveillance programs, always acting surprised when agencies were caught doing things his administration quietly allowed, and then came the issue of race. Obama was meant to be the president who would bring people together, the symbol of a truly united, post-racial America.
Again, it's like a Michelle Obama situation. We don't care. No one feels sorry for you. Shut up and do your stupid job where you sit in your air-conditioned studio with people running out to powder your face. And I mean, I guess somebody has done that hair. It's unclear, but they'd have to be insisting on it, wouldn't they? In any event, the same outfit every night. We know absolutely no effort is made to look good.
Megyn doesn't just point out the contradictions. She shows how they were dressed up and sold like trendy ideals. Take climate change, for example. Obama lectured the world on carbon footprints while flying around like a globe-trotting influencer, attending summits that led to more speeches, more signatures, and little real action, just more hot air in every sense. And let's not ignore the hypocrisy. He spoke out against the wealthy elite while rubbing shoulders with billionaires who could pronounce Chardonnay with flair. His post-presidency life looks more like that of a celebrity than a public servant. Netflix deals, six-figure speaking gigs, and luxury beach houses far from the communities he once vowed to uplift. This isn't just a pinch of irony. It's a wholesale factory dumped on working-class Americans while he poses for drone shots of his Hawaiian mansion. He played the media masterfully, and they cheered like it was a festival. The same press that freaked out over his tan suit never bothered to ask why his administration went after whistleblowers more than any before. But none of it seemed to matter. He looked good doing it. Even the scandals came wrapped in smooth words, softened by glowing headlines.
Everything she says is negative. We've been watching clips from her podcast over the past couple of weeks. Everything she says is negative. I mean, you would never know you are hearing from a woman who is first lady for 8 years, has become probably a billionaire by this point, is out on David Geffen's yacht every other summer, her estate in Martha's Vineyard, her daughters who went to these Tony schools. You would think you were listening to somebody basically like...
Megyn doesn't need to twist facts. The contradictions speak for themselves. The transparent president who leaned on executive orders. The voice of hope who left an entire generation buried in debt and disillusionment. The promised reformer who turned out to be the best salesman for business as usual. And then there's the personality cult. You'd think he cured disease and ended war based on how people still worship his. Megyn doesn't need to twist facts. The contradictions speak for themselves. The transparent president who leaned on executive orders. The voice of hope who left an entire generation buried in debt and disillusionment. The promised reformer who turned out to be the best salesman for business as usual. And then there's the personality cult. You'd think he cured disease and ended war based on how people still worship his promises to flashy distractions. Obama wasn't leading a movement, he was starring in one. And when the applause faded and the cameras turned away, he didn't dig in to fix things. He slipped into vacation mode, disappearing into memoirs and podcasts, while passing the fallout on like a group project no one wanted to finish.
More fuel on the fire that there's a potential, maybe a divorce or some sort of rockiness going on in the Obamas' relationship. They both posted these mirrored, very choreographed Valentine's Day messages on X, but he was just seen at an LA, the basketball team, the Clippers, thank you, game without her. And then on Tuesday, he was spotted eating out at a fancy dinner in Sherman Oaks with both daughters, Malia and Sasha, but again, no...
And somehow, even from a beachfront estate, surrounded by private security and organic hors d'oeuvres, Obama still found time to lecture Americans about unity. It's not just the missteps, it's the audacity. Every mistake came wrapped in lofty words and moral posturing. You'd think he could crash a car into a daycare and turn it into a motivational story. Megyn Kelly doesn't need to stretch the truth. The contradictions practically right themselves. You could publish an entire book on the irony alone, and it would probably outsell his entire library tour. Now, in retirement, he floats above the mess like a wise elder, baffled by the broken system he spent 8 years reinforcing. He had nearly a decade to reshape the nation, but left behind a resume filled with symbolic gestures, polished speeches, and a devoted fan base that mistook charm for leadership. His true legacy isn't hope. It's the idea that image can replace action if it's delivered with enough shine. Megyn Kelly's takedown isn't just for show. It's a reminder that history needs to be looked at without the glow of nostalgia. Because when you strip away the posters, the speeches, and the cinematic flashbacks, what's left isn't a revolution, it's a well-produced rerun. And no matter how good the soundtrack is, the facts remain: big promises, minimal results, and a quiet exit like the mess was never his to fix.
What I think binds it together, all these different strands, a case upholding healthcare, a case declaring same-sex marriage part of our constitutional protections, of mourning. I think what pulls it all together is that no one person did any of that.
So he's sitting around on a June Thursday thinking about himself and his glory days.
As this roast lands its final blow, one thing stands out. Behind the charm, the spotlight, and the carefully managed image was a presidency more focused on how it would be remembered than what it actually achieved. And that kind of legacy isn't finished being questioned. Take his red carpet approach to crisis management. Every disaster, scandal, or national emergency was met with a perfectly worded speech that sounded deep but did little. The delays and vague responses often felt like he was waiting for a script rewrite before facing the nation. While real people faced real problems, Obama stayed in the spotlight, seated comfortably at the cool kids' table, acting detached from the chaos. Supporters called it grace under pressure, but let's be honest, it was just skillful avoidance with a smile. There's a big difference between diplomacy and disappearing. When the country cried out for clarity, it got clever phrases. When it needed real leadership, it got carefully crafted anecdotes. And when it needed strength, it got feel-good lines delivered to applause, but no follow-through.
We don't know all of the earnings. The Obamas reportedly own 4 luxury properties. A home in Martha's Vineyard, estimated to be worth some $20 million. In addition to properties in Washington, D.C., reportedly bought for $8.1 million. A beachfront home in Hawaii, reportedly bought for $8.7 million. And a home bought in Chicago for $1.65 million. Is that more than you need, Mr. Obama? Mrs. Obama?
Megyn Kelly makes it unmistakably clear. The emperor's legacy isn't just empty. It's polished, packaged, and sold as high-end failure. Obama spent years talking about transparency, all while his administration quietly expanded the surveillance state into something straight out of a tech startup's fantasy. The Constitution, just a background prop in his carefully staged policy speeches. Still, there's this odd reverence, a refusal to admit that behind the smooth delivery was a leader who mastered the art of avoiding consequences. He didn't lead from the front, he narrated from a distance. And now, he's like a ghostwriter in American politics, still shaping the narrative while pretending he had nothing to do with the mess. Megyn's roast doesn't wrap up with a joke, it ends with a reflection. A mirror held up to a presidency that favored image over action. Because when style takes the place of substance, the cost is real, and it's paid by the people left to deal with the aftermath. The myth may still look good in glossy books and highlight reels, but the truth is louder now than ever, and this story, it's far from over.